Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Native Echo Podcast, where we make English simple and enjoyable. I am Harper, and today I am here solo, just me and you, which honestly, I really enjoy. There is something a little different about it, a little more quiet, a little more like two friends just sitting down together. So grab your coffee or your tea or whatever you have near you right now and let us spend some time together talking about something that comes up in English every single day: expressing obligation. Now, before you think, oh, this sounds very grammar like, very textbook, I promise you it is not going to feel that way. Because the truth is, obligation is not really about grammar, it is about life. It is about all the things we have to do, all the things we are supposed to do, all the things we feel we should do, but maybe do not always want to. And honestly, when I started thinking about this topic, I realized how much of my daily language is built around this one idea. So let us just talk about it like normal people do. Okay, so let me start with a very simple question. What did you have to do today? Maybe you had to wake up early. Maybe you had to reply to some messages. Maybe you had to cook something, or go somewhere, or finish something you kept putting off. We all have these things we have to do. And that phrase, have to, is probably the most common way we express obligation in English. It is simple, it is direct, it feels very real. I have to go to work. I have to call my mom. I have to drink more water. I keep saying that, by the way. Every single week, I tell myself I have to drink more water. And then I forget. And then I say it again the next week. So here's the thing about have to. It usually means something external is pushing you. The situation is pushing you. Your boss, your schedule, your body, the deadline. It is not exactly your choice. You just have to do it. Like, I have to submit this by Friday. That is not optional. Friday is coming, and the thing needs to be done. That is a have to. Pretty straightforward. Now, there is another word that sounds very similar, but feels just a little different, and that is must. I must do this. I must be there by 9. I must not forget. Must is a little more formal, a little more serious, a little more like something you might read in a document or hear in an announcement. You must wear a seatbelt. You must not smoke in this area. That kind of language. But in spoken English, in real conversation between real people, must can also feel very strong and personal, like when you really believe something deeply. You must try this restaurant. I am telling you, you must see that movie. In that context, must is not about rules. It is about enthusiasm. It is about wanting to share something you love, which I find really interesting. The same word can mean a strict rule or an excited recommendation, depending on how you say it and what context you are in. And this is actually something I want to sit with for a second, because I think English learners sometimes get scared of must because it sounds so heavy, so formal, so serious. But it does not have to be. Context does everything in English. The words are just tools. And the more you listen to real conversations, the more you start to feel when must feels right and when have to feels more natural. Let me tell you about something that happened to me a few weeks ago. I was talking with a friend, and she said something that really stayed with me. She said, I feel like I am supposed to have my life together by now. And I thought, oh, that word, supposed to. Because supposed to is different from have to. Supposed to carries this feeling of expectation, something someone else expects from you, or something society expects, or something you think you should be doing based on some invisible rule book that nobody gave you, but somehow you have it in your head. I am supposed to exercise every day. I am supposed to be saving more money. I am supposed to know what I want by now. These are not rules someone told you. These are things you feel pressure about. And I think supposed to is one of the most emotionally loaded phrases in the English language, honestly, because it is not just about obligation, it is about expectation and the gap between where you are and where you feel you should be. And that gap can feel very uncomfortable. So when someone says, I am supposed to be at the meeting at 3, that is pretty neutral. It means the plan says 3, someone expects me there at 3. But when someone says, I am supposed to be happy right now, and they are clearly not, that is something much deeper. That is a whole feeling wrapped up in 2 words. And being able to hear that difference, being able to use that phrase naturally, that is a real step forward in English. Not just the grammar of it, but the emotional weight of it. Now, let me talk about should. Because should is everywhere. Should is one of those words that people use almost without thinking. I should go to the gym. I should eat better. I should call them back. I should be more patient. Should gives advice. Should expresses what you or someone else thinks is the right thing to do. And this is important. Should is softer than have to. It does not mean you will definitely do something. It does not mean there is a rule. It means this is probably the better choice. This would be good. This is what I think is right. So if a friend asks you, what should I do? They are not looking for a rule. They are looking for your honest opinion about the best direction. You should talk to her directly. You should probably get some rest. You should try a different approach. All of these are advice, gentle pushes in a direction, not commands. And here is something interesting about should. When you turn it negative, it becomes really useful for social situations. You should not say that in a meeting. You should not be so hard on yourself. You should not leave without saying goodbye. These sentences are not law, but they are social guidance. They are about what is appropriate, what is kind, what is expected in a given situation. And honestly, that is a big part of what English conversation is about. Navigating those unwritten rules with words. Let me also talk about ought to, which means almost exactly the same thing as should, but feels a little more old-fashioned, a little more formal. You ought to apologize. She ought to know better. He ought to have called by now. In everyday conversation, you will hear it sometimes, especially in British English. But in most casual speaking, people just say should. So you do not need to use ought to all the time. But you should recognize it when you hear it. Because when someone says, you really ought to read that book, they mean exactly the same thing as you really should read that book, just with a slightly different flavor. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. There is a difference between obligation and lack of obligation. And the way English handles this is a little tricky. So I want to be clear about it because I think this is where a lot of confusion happens. If you want to say something is not allowed, something is forbidden, you say must not or cannot. You must not park here. You cannot take photos in this room. That is a prohibition, a ban, a rule you cannot break. But if you want to say something is not necessary, something is optional, you say do not have to. And these two things are completely different. You do not have to come to the party. That means it is optional, your choice, no pressure. But you must not come to the party. That means you are actually not allowed. You are being told no. So one sentence is an invitation to choose freely, and the other is a prohibition. And the difference is enormous. This is one of those things that if you mix them up, it can create a real misunderstanding. So it is worth slowing down and really feeling that difference. Do not have to means no obligation. Must not means it is not allowed. I remember once someone told me a story about a job interview they had. They were nervous and they misunderstood something the interviewer said. The interviewer said, "You do not have to wear formal clothes to work here." And this person thought they meant you must not wear formal clothes. So they showed up the next day in very casual clothes, feeling totally out of place. And the interviewer was a little surprised, and the person was embarrassed. And it was one of those small misunderstandings that create a big awkward moment. But once they explained it, everyone laughed. And actually, it's a really good example of how one small word changes everything. So let us just review these quietly in my head. Have to. Something external pushes you. I have to be there at 8. The schedule says so. Must. Strong obligation. Or in conversation, strong recommendation. You must try this. It is amazing. Supposed to. Expectation from others or society. I am supposed to finish this by Thursday. Should. Advice or personal belief about the right thing to do. You should get some sleep. Do not have to. No obligation. It is optional. You do not have to decide right now. Must not. Not allowed. Prohibition. You must not open that door. Now, I want to talk about something a bit softer, because not all obligation feels heavy. Sometimes we use language to suggest or encourage in a very gentle way. And one phrase I love for this is you might want to. You might want to bring an umbrella. It looks like rain. You might want to call ahead before you go. You might want to read the instructions first. This is obligation so soft it barely feels like one. It is more like a friendly heads up, a nudge from someone who cares. And I think this is actually a beautiful part of English, the way you can dial the pressure up or down with your word choices. Have to is strong. Must is strong. Should is medium. Might want to is very light. And knowing how to move along that scale depending on the situation, that is real fluency. Let me tell you about my mornings, because mornings are basically a list of obligations in my experience. I have to make coffee. That is non-negotiable. That is have to at its most urgent. I should probably eat something real for breakfast, not just a biscuit. That is should. I know it would be better, but honestly, sometimes the biscuit wins. I am supposed to do some stretching because my back has been hurting lately. Supposed to. Something I told myself I would do. Something that feels expected. And I do not have to check my email before 9, technically, but I usually do anyway because somehow the habit is stronger than the intention. All of these small phrases, have to, should, supposed to, do not have to, they all live in one normal morning before I even leave the house. And the same is true for you, I am sure. Your day is full of these words, even if you are not thinking about them consciously. I want to spend a moment on need to as well, because need to sits close to have to, but carries a slightly different feeling. Need to often feels more urgent, more personal. I need to talk to you. I need to sort this out today. I need to get out of the house for a bit. Need to suggests something important to you personally, something that feels necessary from the inside, not just because a rule says so. I need to rest. That is not a schedule telling you. That is your body telling you. So need to often sounds more immediate, more urgent, more emotionally connected. And in real conversation, people mix need to and have to pretty naturally. You will hear both, and the difference is usually small. But listening for it helps you understand the speaker's feeling a little better. And speaking of feelings, I think one of the most underrated forms of expressing obligation in English is when we talk about past obligation. Because sometimes we need to say, I should have done something, or I had to do something, or I was supposed to do something. And these past forms carry a lot of emotion. I should have called. That means I did not call, and now I feel like it was a mistake. I should have been more careful. I had to leave early. Something made me go. I was supposed to be there, but I got stuck. These sentences paint a picture not just of what happened, but of how you feel about what happened. And that emotional layer is what makes them so useful in real conversations. When you are explaining yourself, when you are apologizing, when you are telling a story. These phrases carry meaning far beyond the grammar. Actually, I want to share something a little personal here. There was a period in my life, not so long ago, where I felt completely overwhelmed by obligation. Not any one big thing, just the accumulation of small ones. I have to answer that. I should reply. I am supposed to remember this. I need to take care of that. And it built up until I realized I was spending more time thinking about what I had to do than actually living my days. And what changed things for me was actually starting to ask myself, do I really have to? Or do I just think I have to? Because there is a big difference between actual obligation and the obligation we create in our heads. Real obligation has a real consequence if you ignore it. Imagined obligation is just pressure we give ourselves. And sometimes it is worth separating the two. I have to pay my bills. That is real. I have to reply to every message within an hour. That is probably imagined. And once you start being honest about which is which, life gets a little lighter. I think language reflects life so much in this way. The words we use for obligation in English, the whole range of them, they are not just grammar points. They are a map of how we relate to responsibility, to expectation, to ourselves, and to others. And the more comfortable you become with this language, the more you can express yourself precisely. You can say exactly how much pressure you feel. You can say, I must, when you mean it fully. You can say, I should, when it is advice you are not totally sure about. You can say, I do not have to, when you want someone to feel free. Language gives us that power. So this week, I want to invite you to do something simple. Just notice. Listen to the conversations around you, or the shows you watch, or the podcasts you follow, and pay attention every time you hear must, have to, should, supposed to, need to, might want to, do not have to. Notice which one is used and think about why. What feeling is the person trying to express? How strong is the obligation? Is there emotion behind it? This kind of noticing, this kind of active listening, that is how language really becomes yours. Not through memorizing rules, but through paying attention to how real people use real words in real moments. And if you want to practice, try writing 3 sentences about your day using 3 different obligation words. I had to do this. I was supposed to do that, but I did not. I should probably do this later. And see how those sentences feel different, even when they describe similar situations. That contrast is where the learning lives. All right, before I go, let me do a quick word tour for today. Have to means something external is requiring you to do something. I have to submit this report by Monday. Must means strong obligation or a very enthusiastic recommendation, depending on the context. You must try this place. It is incredible. Supposed to means there is an expectation from someone else or from yourself. I was supposed to call her back yesterday. Should means advice or what you believe is the right thing. You should get some rest. You look tired. Do not have to means no obligation. It is optional. You do not have to decide right now. Must not means it is not allowed. It is prohibited. You must not park in front of the building. Need to means something feels personally urgent or important. I need to sort this out today. And should have means something you think you should have done in the past but did not. I should have started earlier. That is your word tour for today. Use them this week. See how they feel. And come back and tell me in the comments, which one do you use the most? Or which one was new for you today? I genuinely love reading what you write. It makes this feel like a real conversation, not just me talking into the air. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Native Echo Podcast and give it a like. It really helps us reach more people who are on this same English journey. Share this with a friend who is working on their English. Maybe someone who always says, I must practice more, but then does not quite get around to it. We all know someone like that. Keep listening, keep practicing, and remember, you do not have to be perfect. You just have to keep going. I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.